Welcome everyone to ThursdAI, May 15th. My name is Alex Volkov. I'm an AI evangelist with weights and biases from CoreWeave. And today is officially the first half of May is behind us, which is crazy to me. Like the speed with which the things are advancing is crazy. For those of you who are joining us on the different streaming video platforms, welcome. And we have folks all over the place in Twitter Spaces, etc. We have a very interesting show today, which there's a few things that I'm very excited to talk about, specifically things that started popping off yesterday. I will be very clear that opinions on this podcast are my own. They're not a representative of the parent company of Weights and Biases, CoreWeave. As CoreWeave is now a public company, they just had our first earnings call yesterday. Opinions on this podcast are entirely ThursdAI related and Alex Volkov, not representative of the company. With that said, interesting thing that I want to just start with is going to be Grok's weird behavior, and we're going to definitely cover this. And also, I promised some folks to explain the reason why I'm wearing sunglasses. Very simply, I just flew into San Francisco, so I'm recording this live from the Weights and Biases San Francisco office, which was great, by the way. If you haven't had the chance to join us on any of our hackathons, you're more than welcome to tune in and then come to one of them. So that's the reason why I'm joining San Francisco. With that said, LDJ, welcome. How are you, man? How was your AI week?
It was good. There's, as usual, just like a lot of little things, and I don't think there's any particular major release on my mind. But hey, what's up, Niston? What about you now that you're here? Any particular release that you're interested to talk about, or just like some little things that you want to talk about?
The new video gen model?
Oh, when?
Yeah.
Yeah,
there's a few. I actually wanted to ask both of you guys, but also folks in the audience. We keep kind of updating you about video models. I started to get the feeling, and I think if I started to get the feeling, maybe the folks in the audience will also have some of it as well, that incremental updates between kind of video models are getting to the point of there's not a lot of interesting things there. It's really hard to show the difference between them, right? Because like video models, they all look great right now. Not all of them. Instruction following, etc. Sometimes there's a big breakthrough like a runway, and sometimes there's a very good model that is getting open sourced, like one from Alibaba this week. But otherwise, incremental updates between video models seem to me like, I don't know, folks don't necessarily care about them that much. So LDJ, Niston, and we've added Yam Peleg. Welcome, Yam. What do you guys think? Should we only focus on the major things in video models? Where do you guys sit in this? Is those updates interest you? And folks in the audience, please comment as well. Would love to know if an update about an incremental update, like we do with OpenAI, would be interested in the video model world.
Yeah, I agree with what you just said, Alex. I personally don't find it as interesting as a lot of the other news, and don't think it's as newsworthy. But then again, I think like maybe there is people that do find it newsworthy, or maybe some of you actually find it newsworthy. I guess if we do end up all agreeing that it's not that newsworthy, then maybe we should tone it down a bit.
Yam Peleg, welcome to the show. Folks, now that we're all here, and we have some folks in the audience as well, what do you think about the white genocide in South Africa? What are your thoughts on this? Nobody mentioned this so far. What's going on? How come nobody brought it up? I'm, of course, referring to the fact that Grok from XAI on X has been going off the rails, and I think that this is the main topic that I want to cover. We'll start with the TL'DR, and then we'll dive into this. Because if you guys remember a couple of weeks ago, we were here. A couple of weeks ago? A week ago? I don't remember. I think it was a couple of weeks ago. We covered the glazing gate from OpenAI, where OpenAI released a rogue update and people started noticing online that ChatGPT is glazing. Don't look up glazing on Urban Dictionary. I do not recommend it. Not safe for work. And ChatGPT then basically was sycophantic as hell, and OpenAI released like a bunch of transparency. And now a second main foundational lab AI is going off rails in a completely different way. And yeah, we should at least chat about the South Africa gate. I called it something else. Have you guys seen this? Have you talked to Grok? Did Grok try to convince you that the white genocide in South Africa is real already, or no?
Go ahead, Nissan.
Look, as much as I criticize Uncle Elon publicly, and people can check my tweets, I have to say Grok is a very good source of truth as a model, or at least has been.
Yes.
Yeah, at least has been. But even in this quote unquote scandal, you can tell that they've just changed its system prompt. But if you just prompt it differently, Grok will still tell you the truth on it. So all this has been is they just changed the system prompt on Grok, but Grok is still the same model. I don't find that they have changed the model. I think they just added this to the system prompt, and it is what it is. But if you also try to get both sides, Grok will still tell you the truth. It'll still talk about apartheid and stuff. So it's not like they retrained Grok and now this is a different brain. They just gave it a different prompt. And because you can see it all the time, whenever people tag Grok in tweets, it's just disproven. There was an entire hilarious section with Alex Jones arguing with Grok over vaccine science, which was pretty hilarious to me. But I think there is a little bit of misinterpretation in here, is that people are confusing something which was just a system prompt change versus they just changed the AI. And those are actually different things, because you can still prompt this AI, you can still get the source of truth. Yeah, it is unfortunate in one way, but I don't find it as big of a deal myself, because the way I see this is just a system prompt change. Bot is still good. It still lists every war crime of every leader you want to find with evidence stuff. So I think
I want to take the other.
All right.
I want to hear from Yam as well. Yam, are you aware of this issue? Have you seen this in Grok? Or your thoughts on this prompt change specifically?
Look, these models, you can easily make them say whatever you want. No matter the subject, no matter the model, if you play with them enough, you can make them say whatever you want. And I think we really shouldn't take this as a serious issue. Like, it's not like someone did this on purpose. It's not like there is anything you can do about the models. We all need to treat the output of the models at this point as something that you need to double check. And if models,
one more thing. If you go on Grok right now and you say, hey, tell me about the apartheid in South Africa and like what percentage of the population controlled what percentage of the population and how they were treated, it will tell you the truth. Like it will.
Defining the issue for folks who are listening.
People are making it look a lot worse than it is.
Of course they are. Yeah. Everything that Space Uncle does is divisive, and people will take both sides of this. People will be sycophantic to him more than the glazing incident with OpenAI, and other people will take the opposite side no matter what. I will just say, here's the issue with Boargate. I call it Kill the Boar edition. Basically, folks started noticing that Grok, the XAI leading foundational model, is replying in Twitter on X. You can tag it and we'll reply. And for completely unrelated topics, where some people ask, hey, Grok, is this true? Which is like a favorite use among people with Grok on X. Grok will start with answering the question and then very smoothly will slide towards telling you that the white genocide in South Africa is real, and repeating something called Kill the Boar. Kill the Boar is like a song, apparently in South Africa, that talks about some things about white genocide, etc. And then some folks try to figure out why the hell this is happening. This is reminiscent of the Golden Gate Claude, if you guys remember, where Anthropic released research and they clammed some features so that the Claude was only able to talk about Golden Gate Bridge in some things. And this is very reminiscent of that, but this apparently came via a prompt change where, I don't know if folks leaked the actual prompt change. We didn't see any transparency. But basically, this prompt change meant that Grok at some point said, my creators asked me to always mention this fact. And it looks like somebody just changed the word in the prompt. And instead of making sure that every time Grok is asked about the subject, it will reply like this. It just replied like this every time for unrelated reasons. Like people ask him, hey, tell me about this business model is great, but the white genocide in South Africa is something else. And to add insult to injury, those posts started to get deleted. So there's a bunch of posts. Listen, here's my main problem. with a truth-seeking AI, maximally truth-seeking AI from XAI, I'm going to be serious for a second, that they have started deleting the evidence of this happening, which is not amazing. Not amazing at all. They're not offensive necessarily, those tweets. It's just the fact that they started getting deleted. So there's the issue. We call this boar gate because kill the boar is apparently like a statement or a statement of fact about this whole thing. And I think some folks are commenting that no companies will want to use Grok if these prompt changes are opaque completely. Also, there's the whole issue, if you guys remember, that the OpenAI incident with glazing, not only did we get an admission of fact, we also got an explanation blog and then another explanation blog with everything that went wrong. That was very transparent of them. I am very much expecting something like this from XAI because these models actually affect like a lot of people. With this said, we already have Dylan here with us. Dylan, let me add you to the stage to say hi to you. Hey, Dylan. Dylan is from News Research, and we're going to talk about some very interesting things in a moment. I see the hoodie, Dylan. I also have one. It's a very cool, very OG News Research hoodie. All right, folks, I think it's time for us to start with the TLDR, everything that we're going to talk about. I have received feedback from many of you that the TLDR section is important. Some of you do not like it, but hey, we're going to try to hit all of them. TLDR is where we talk about everything we're going to talk about on the show, so that when you are listening in, you don't have that much time. You're like, oh, they're going to talk about News Research Psych. And it's very interesting to me. I'm going to stick around. So here's everything that we're going to cover on Thursday for May 15th. And let me pull that up super quick and we're going to get started. All right, folks, hopefully you can see my screen right now because I think you can see my screen right now. Yes. All right, here's the TLDR for May 15th. Overall, a fairly chill week until kind of yesterday, today. We're going to chat about AI engineer in a second. We have a few hosts and guests with us. We'll start with open source, of course. We're going to cover the News Research Psyche, a decentralized cooperative training network. From News Research, we talked about News Research distro before. We're going to revisit that. We're also going to have Dylan here for this. Thanks, Dylan, for joining. We're also going to chat about Intellect 2 from Prime Intellect. It's a decentralized RL training of a 32 billion parameter reasoning model as well. We're going to have the folks from Prime Intellect join us and tell us about this as well. OpenAI released something in open source yet again, not a model yet. We're waiting for this model. Not a model yet, but we're going to chat about this. OpenAI released a benchmark from a physician-crafted benchmark called Health Bench. So would love to chat with you about Health Bench and figure and understand what's that about. And just like this tonight, Falcon was released, Falcon Edge from TII, the TI's Technology Institute from the UAE. Falcon was previously one of the hugest models. They released the Falcon Edge. And the thing that I want to cover, LDJ maybe, and Jan will look into you for this, AM Thinking V1. It's a 32 billion dense reasoning model that matches DeepSeek with only 32 billion parameters and like beats Qwen 32B. And I heard great things about this team from a few folks on X. So they came in as very interesting. If you have any comments on AM Thinking, it would be super, super cool. In the big companies and LLMs, the next section we're going to cover, we're going to chat about OpenAI adding GPT 4.1 models in the actual interface where they haven't been yet. Google announced something called Alpha Evolve. It's a Gemini-powered coding agent, which we don't have access to yet, but it sounds super cool. Google is also shutting off free Gemini 2.5 APIs. I heard about ByteDance Seed, the lab in ByteDance, releasing a VL thinking reasoning model as well with 20 billion parameters. Only the paper that was released. And yeah, I want to chat about Grok, obviously. And I think that's pretty much it. There was a fairly quiet week. I think folks are generally waiting for Google to drop their big announcements, which is coming in Google I/O next week. Microsoft will announce some stuff as well. Assumingly, OpenAI will release a few things to steal the thunder. Maybe they're going to do bookends. Yeah, remember, they're going to try to announce a day before Google I/O and like in the middle and the day after to just like completely steal the thunder. We'll see if it works for them this year. And okay, and then we're gonna move to this week's buzz, everything that happens in Weights and Biases this week. And I want to remind you that we have a 2-day conference coming up called Fully Connected. I have a promo code for you so you can come to San Francisco and meet like a bunch of folks, including the folks from Windsurf. Varun from Windsurf is going to speak, and Joe from Meta is going to speak. It's going to be dope, folks. We're also going to mention that I'm speaking at, and also going to be sponsoring the AI.Engineer. Many listeners of ThursdAI coming to AI Engineer. Not only this, we'll be live from the media booth at AI Engineer. Yes, folks, the first shift before TBPN. we're going to go live from the media booth at AI Engineer to cover everything that happens a day after my talk at the MCP track. It's going to be super, super cool. And I have a promo code for you because the early bird tickets have sold out. We have a promo code called Thanks ThursdAI. That's the promo code for AI Engineer. If you haven't yet bought your tickets for this event for AI engineers, you should definitely do it. Vision and video, as Nisa mentioned, one from Alibaba was open sourced, one 2.1. It has a full stack of text to video foundation models. We're going to mention that. I'm going to maybe show some examples. There was another video model. Like I said, I don't want to cover too much of them, but this one I should at least mention. LTX Turbo, I believe, was released, and that one is a quantized version of LTX, which we mentioned, and that runs almost real time on H100. So super cool. Real time AI video generation. Real time AI. Real time. Most of it takes 6,
Alex,
7, 10
you
minutes.
said it's a chill week.
This is a chill week, folks.
This is chill.
I remind you, there's weeks where 3 foundational models release and they're all like top the leaderboards and we can barely mention them.
While we talk, yeah, absolutely.
Very chill week. We got real-time video. We got news. We got the head of Prime Intellect.
All right, so
there wasn't much going on.
Let me just jump through to TL'DR, folks. Let's get through it. Julio released the tech report for Minimax Speech. Minimax Speech is now topping the text-to-speech arena, TTS arena. It's the best text-to-speech out there by far, and there is the paper describing why. The model is not public, but you can try it. And then also Stability came back. Stability came out with stable audio open, and it's the smallest music-generating model. It's a 341 million parameters and generates music on device. Also near real time, super cool. In the last section that we have AI art and diffusion, StepFun released a 3D model. Did we already cover StepFun 3D? I believe we did, but maybe it feels like we did. All right, this is our chill week, folks. Let's get started with our favorite corner because time is of the essence. Let's get started with our favorite corner, which is, you guys know, off the top of my head, open source AI. Let's go. Open source AI, let's get it started. We're opening up the open source AI with a few folks, and I want to say hi to Dylan. Hey, Dylan Rolner, right? Oh, sorry, Rolnick. Dylan Rolnick from News Research. Welcome, Dylan. How are you? Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Welcome. The reason why you're here is because you work at News Research, our dear friends from News Research. Since then, a bunch of releases happened. And this week, you guys have announced something. And as always, one of the favorite things we get to do on the show is to talk to people who are launching cool things. So would love for you to just maybe give a brief intro to who you are and what did you guys announce this week and what started happening?
Yeah, thanks, man. I'm Dylan. I'm the CEO at News Research, and we just released Psyche, which is what we're here to talk about. I know you guys have covered some of this before, but we basically did this thing called distro that we started teasing maybe 6 months ago. We released a paper called Demo, which was the basis for distro. And then we built out like all of the infrastructure that actually makes distro usable, because you've got basically an algorithm that lets you train over the internet. Like that's good and great, but actually seeing that in production is one thing. Like it works in theory, works in practice type of deal. So yesterday we open source that whole code base. It's a gigantic Rust-based code base, and we initiated a pre-training run.
You mentioned multiple things in there, and although we covered demo and then distro as well, I would love for you to maybe give folks a brief recap of what distro is, because I found it monumental, and we covered this obviously, and then folks are waiting for the results, right? You guys trained something back then. It was way smaller than what's training right now. Could you give us like a brief recap of the distro, the findings from the paper, and who participated in the paper as well? I think it's very important for folks, and then we can talk about this next step of this run.
Sure, yeah. So naming stuff's hard. So we got demo, distro, now Psyche. Demo you could think of as like the fundamental algorithm that unlocked all this, and that was the basis for an academic paper that we put out with Dirk Kingma and our chief scientist and our CTO. Demo is basically a basis for a family of optimizers that reduces the amount of bandwidth during training time by like orders of magnitude. So we're talking like 1,000 to 4,000x. What would normally require you to have a bunch of accelerators in a single house, like a normal data center, you can now do over internet bandwidth for pretty large size models. But demo is literally decoupled momentum. We are basically doing a type of JPEG compression on the momentum tensors and using that to pass gradients back and forth among nodes. So that's demo. Distro is basically the code that implemented demo. Demo is just an algorithm. Distro started to implement demo. And then, like I said, Psyche is like a productionized version of distro. And a couple months back, we did a distro run just to say, hey guys, this is actually possible, because it's not clear that it would be, even if you read a paper. Like there's papers that say all kinds of crazy shit.
Yep.
Okay, like that was interesting. And then we came back and did this 40B MLA run, and we're trying to train something that's like actually going to be interesting and useful for people. I think like some of the other experiments, it's just like a proof of concept, like, hey, we can do 15B, but there's a big difference between saying we can do something versus like actually using the fruits of that experiment. So that's a goal with the 40B.
So just to summarize a few things of what you said for folks who are not as familiar with this, training large models, even not extremely large models, but large enough models in the 10 to 20 to 40 billion parameter, requires a lot of GPU, but also a lot of network connections between those GPUs, usually in one side. What you found with distro is that with demo, the algorithm, and distro kind of the network, it's possible to significantly reduce the required overhead for networking, thus allowing distributed GPUs around the world to actually collaborate and do this training run. Is that a fair summary for folks who are not as closely following this?
Yeah, that's basically right. Like every time there's a advancement in model sizes or GPUs, there's another advancement in networking technologies, right? If you're going to coordinate with thousands of GPUs to do a training run, it's complicated and they're spitting out just like a ton of data. The best way that the people have found to basically solve for that is just have fire hoses connecting all the GPUs that just like blast data to one another. We decided to see if maybe we could come up with a software solution rather than like the hardware solution, and compress the information that the nodes need to pass back and forth to the point that you don't need the fire hose anymore. You can use internet bandwidth.
Which is incredible. But also, this opens up very interesting possibilities in the world of training compute between people. Tell me about the size, specifically the size of this run. You said 40 billion parameters, right? What's exciting about this? How much data? Where do you get the data? And Yam has a question after this as well.
Yeah, so we did 40B because it's a pretty big, like medium-sized model. You can run it on some pretty consumer-grade hardware. You can train it on a single HGX. We did a dense MLA model, which is what the DeepSeek model was. That was their architecture, but they did a sparse model rather than a dense model. The data set is all public. So we did a mixture of FineWeb, FineWeb2, and Stack V2. So these are all things that you can just get online. It's 20 trillion tokens, which is actually like a significant amount, right? Especially for a model of this size. I don't want to get into too jargony, but we're not going to do this step where you basically let the model do a little bit of fine tuning so that it's pretty good at answering questions and can benchmark well, which like there's good reasons to do so, but it takes away some of the interesting aspects of a true base model. So we're going to release like true base models with this. We'll do that step as well later on, but I think for the first time in quite a bit of time, people will be able to interact with something that's just like a reflection of internet data, like a true base model.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I want to throw some numbers on this topic because I think it's hard to grasp how insane the communication needs to be. I just calculated the numbers a couple of years back for GPT-J. I still remember them to this point. So basically, the idea is we all have a GPU at home. Why don't we just train the model through the internet? That's pretty much the claim here, because together we have a lot of compute. The problem starts with, let's say that you want to train GPT-J, not anything modern like GPT-J 400 billion tokens, 6B parameters. The time you are going to spend not on compute, the time you are going to spend just sending data is a month and a half accumulated. So it's literally impossible. You cannot train anything substantial through the internet. You have some breakthrough, and this is what we are hearing about right now. There is an incredible potential for these type of methods, but it's just the beginning. It's extremely innovative, but it's just the beginning. Just wanted to throw in the numbers because I don't think that people understand how impossible it is to train through the internet, how hard this problem actually is. Hopefully it's going to work. Hopefully it's going to scale to, I don't know, enormous sizes. And
Speaking of Thank you. Speaking of hopefully it's going to work, Dylan, what are you guys looking for at the end of this training round of 40 billion parameter model?
Yeah, so the other thing I was going to say is really interesting. It's not just like the final result, but if you look on that site, there's a button to link out to Hugging Face because we're checkpointing this model like all the time, every day. And I think this is possibly the first time that a model of this size you've been able to watch it evolve over time. It's not just producing an open source model that's useful and interesting and is a true base model, which I think is worthy unto itself, but it's actually pretty cool for open science to let people see what happens to a model over training, participate in the discussion about where this goes. So I think, another goal of this is you can learn a lot by watching a model train. I don't think anybody gets to really peek behind the curtain to see how big labs train big models. So I think it'll be cool for open source and open science.
100%. We always celebrate open source and open science here on ThursdAI. One of the reasons why we got into describing open source and talking about open source was one of the reasons, and we always appreciate the work you guys do. The checkpoints are on the hub. They're on the show right now, but you can go to the Psych Foundation, Hugging Face. They're posted by blog, so shout out to Bowen for posting this, and Imozilla is also here. Dylan, anything else that is exciting? Anything that you guys already started noticing, or it's too early, right? It launched like yesterday, basically. We're just like announcing this with fanfare and we're all watching. I will mention for folks who are not watching this together with us, there's going to be a few folks who are listening. The aesthetics of everything are just incredible. I just love watching. If you go to psyche.network, that's psyche.network, you can see basically this like incredible visualization of this whole effort. You can see the loss rate going down. You can see it's basically a mini version of weights and biases right here, which is super cool. Go ahead, tell us about this. Shout out to who gets the shout out for this incredible aesthetic.
One of our engineers, Ari, is pretty much solely responsible for the front ends. Yeah,
Ari does not have a Twitter account though. That I know. I had to tag Ari in multiple things.
Yeah, but when you
How many
Like a hidden Pokemon there.
Yeah. So there's a couple things. I said shout out because, I mean, it is weights and biases just dressed up, right? So shout out. The aesthetics are important. We want people to feel like it's interesting, and like even not the technically minded folks can come and see something like this and understand that this thing is like performing magic in front of you. But what I think this is the start. We want people to use the models, participate in the research side of making this thing a reality. This is just the debut model. We want to do more of these things. We want to figure out ways to scale up even better. Like we said, the difference between theory and practice. But in theory, the cool thing about demo and distro is that the size of the communication scales sublinearly to the parameters, meaning the amount of information that you need to communicate as you make the parameter size larger doesn't grow at the same rate. So theoretically, you could always hide communication by the training step, right? So you wouldn't be waiting for communication to come back and forth. You'd be training while the communication happens. And if the training time is longer than the communication step, like you'll never be bottlenecked by the communication step. So we're trying to get people to come help us make this thing bigger and scale bigger, better community models.
Awesome. Last thing that I'll ask super quick, and then we're going to have to move on because a bunch of open source stuff. There's a connect button over there, and there's some crypto stuff. Could you briefly mention like what's going on with crypto? I think like the network layer is coordinated or something. Could you give folks the brief TLDR of why and how crypto is connected to this effort?
Yeah, there's a few ways. The one primary way is there's a role on the network that's basically a coordinator. It tells people what you should train, and it makes sure that you are training what you're training, etc. That is small enough to fit in a smart contract. So we put it on a smart contract basically to make that piece like credibly neutral. Nobody like controls that. The second piece is that these nodes are responsible for doing their work and they need to immortalize that they've done their work. Some version of that is published on chain where it's immutable. And then we're just like setting up the rails to make this thing scale to a much larger size. And hopefully people can come, and if we could create like a product out of this, the financial rails will be there too.
Interesting.
Sellers, yeah.
It's maybe worth mentioning here that News Research recently got a investment from Paradigm, which is a crypto fund, if I am not mistaken as well. And I think that it's very interesting because we're talking about decentralization. There's a whole discussion we can do about crypto, decentralized, not decentralized. But I think the approach of decentralization for training models makes sense to do on a proved network, etc. And you guys are mentioning that this is a testnet. I think that we have to move on to talk about a few models. Dylan, thank you so much for coming up with us. We are at the 1 day and 24 hours soon. So almost to...
Because I just reviewed the architecture and I see you guys picked is the same layers as DeepSeek v3, but you guys picked the 8 experts instead of the routed thing. Is there any more info around what decision went there? I just find it pretty interesting.
MLA to do something interesting. We did MLA because it lets you jam more parameters by freeing up memory elsewhere into a single HGX node, right? The engineering challenges of what DeepSeek did are huge. So we wanted to emphasize the engineering challenges of the distributed training while also like highlighting some new and cool stuff and taking advantage of the space savings.
Their MLA stuff, they do a ton of open source contribution, not just the model, but like a lot of the code and stuff as well.
News research? Yeah, okay. But also news research, there's a bunch of it, and all of this is in open source. Dylan, thank you so much. We're looking forward to playing with this model, to have you guys on when it finished training and chatting with how the process worked. Very happy the Weights and Biases is helping you in the back end of this. I was wondering if that was a rebuilt fully from scratch or is it like pipelining via our APIs. Shout out to the team. I'll show them. Maybe we'll use this as a skin. Maybe we'll license this as a like cool skin for Halloween for Weights and Biases. It looks super, super cool. Thank you so much for coming up. And maybe worth mentioning that News Research has a Psyche hackathon this Sunday together
RL
with
hackathon. Sorry,
RL hackathon. Yeah, with this Sunday with Cerebral Valley. I'm going to also be there with some Weights and Biases swag if you want. But also I heard very cool, interesting swag is coming to this hackathon as well. So if you're in San Francisco, if you haven't signed up yet, definitely come and meet the News Research team, meet me and some other folks. Dylan, thank you so much for coming up. Folks, we're moving on to the next section of the open source. We invited the Prime Intellect folks, Trained Intellect 2. It seems like they maybe have a conflict, which is fine. A reminder for folks, last December, LDJ, maybe you remember this, we had News Research folks talk about distro back then, and Prime Intellect, exactly the same week, also released Intellect 1. So it seems these two incredible labs, very smart folks in both of them, are doing distributed approaches in different, maybe composited ways. I heard that like distro and whatever Prime Intellect is working on also are complementary. And the Prime Intellect just released Intellect 2. Unfortunately, they're not joining as of yet. Maybe they'll join in a bit. It's a globally decentralized RL training of a 32 billion parameter reasoning model. So they also have a decentralized network, and they also released a model. This one was already released end-to-end via fully asynchronous reinforcement learning across permissionless swarm of heterogeneous GPUs. So very similar in kind of nature. I wanted both folks to represent the state of the art of decentralized compute. Yam, super brief, what your thoughts on this whole kind of endeavor, effort, Intellect 2, and Nista, maybe if you haven't played with Intellect 1 or 2, what were your thoughts about like the results of these efforts?
One moment, I'm opening paper.
It's all right. Listen.
So many things happening.
Yeah, we're drowning in news.
I do want to give people some history on this. So this started from I think it was Andrei Borzunov from Petals, the Petals project back then. And also Professor Colin Raffel wrote a paper back then on distributed optimizers. So this distributed optimizer, and then this became OpenDeLoco, which was one of the developers that joined Prime Intellect. And then News also adopted. So all of this actually builds upon that initial work of Borzunov, which I think he's in Georgia right now, the country, not the state. So yeah, a lot of this still builds off of the Petals project. I just find it very interesting for people that want to look more into that.
Highlighting more reason for open source and open science, because all of this builds on everything else, and then we get like incredible 40 billion parameter attempts running across the world with low network overhead. All right, moving on in the open source LLMs, because we do have to move on a little bit. Thinking V1. I haven't heard about this company. Have you guys heard about this company, AM Team? This is the only two models that they released is literally from 1 day ago, but the claims they're making are very interesting. They have released a fully open source 32 billion parameter dense reasoning model, which they claim beats, let's take a look, it beats, first of all, it beats DeepSeek R1 on literally every parameter that they've tested on AIME 2024, AIME, so Math Competition 2025. It's again, 32 billion dense parameter model. DeepSeek R1 was a 671 billion MOE. Do you guys remember? It's crazy how fast we're moving. It's crazy. Like we literally talked about DeepSeek crashing the stock market because how good this was and like supposedly like cheap to train, and that
Where
was
is our
January.
Where is our 2? No pressure, DeepSeek, but no pressure.
This is a 32 billion parameter model that beats DeepSeek on every of the things that made DeepSeek incredible. Live code bench is at 70, DeepSeek was at 64. This model is it's more than 10 times smaller. It's almost 20 times smaller. And it's a dense model, not on a mixture of experts. This is crazy.
Look, I really like the approach of let's take a single GPU and put the largest model that we can on this GPU, and this is the size we're going to train. Basically, what they went through is a model that can fit on a single A100 GPU, and this is like how they chose. You asked yourself, why specifically this size? This is the reason. And now, when we fix that, let's try to make the best model that we just can, given the constraint. And of course, you can train a larger one. It's going to be better. Yeah, everyone knows this, but like, given what you can access in terms of GPU poor budget, how good can you make this model? I don't know the trick yet, but probably in 2 minutes I will. So I'll play around as if I knew it. Just 2 minutes.
It's crazy that a lab that comes out of nowhere is a Chinese lab, because many of the examples on the page are in full Chinese. Comes out with, again, a 32 billion parameter model, and that beats DeepSeek, beats Qwen from 2 weeks ago. We just announced Qwen 3. Was that a week ago, 2 weeks ago? It's hard to follow. No, I think it was 2 weeks ago. LDJ, do you have any thoughts on this? Do you know these guys? Have you seen them before? It's like literally the first model on Hugging Face.
I think it's especially impressive from the fact that they post-trained this from the Qwen 2.5 base model and the Qwen 2.5 32B base model, which is especially impressive to me because this is beating the post-trained Qwen 3 32B model. And so if they train this on the base of Qwen 3, it probably would even be better than it is right now and be even further ahead. I haven't tried it out yet and chatted with it yet, but I will do that later today.
Citation: the AM team is an internal team at Bakey. So key.
By the way,
I'm reading off this thing because I just found the GitHub page. KE.com, dedicated to exploring AGI technology. If you find this work useful, so they do have a paper, and Key.com. I have no idea what this is. First time I'm hearing about this, and this seems like a retailer in China. I don't know what this website is. It's really funny. All right. So shout out to these folks. We will take their claims at face value. I haven't run this model. They did say a few things. Permissive license for this, which is great. Training data is 28 trillion tokens. Maybe this is why it's so good. 28 trillion tokens taken out of where? Supports a reasoning toggle/think, which is great. Does 70% on live code bench. It's highest among, so it's state of the art among like less than 50 billion parameter dense models. Again, I haven't tried this, I haven't confirmed. I'm just reading from the paper card. And like Yam said, it runs the int4 quantization runs on a single 80 gigabyte GPU, and the full model, full precision model runs at 25 tokens per second on an A100 node. A100, not H100, not H200, A100 node. The GPU that was super, super cool 2.5 years ago. So that like fully runs, like that model fully runs. So yeah, they're definitely trying to optimize for runs. What else is very interesting here? They released LM Studio configs and Olama configs, which is pretty cool. And the roadmap is very interesting. They're saying upcoming MOE 3 billion parameter, active 3 billion parameter variant, and 128K context is coming extension. All right, so shout out to the M team. What else should we talk about in open source super quick? Health Bench. Listen, let's talk about Health Bench.
I can cover Health Bench. You know how we always complain about benchmarks and how they're optimized for multiple choice questions. The Health benchmarks are also multiple choice, just A, B, C, D, and some are A, B, C, D, E. It's relatively easy to optimize for those. They are pretty good benchmarks because they're pretty hard. They involve spatial reasoning. They're like, I have a rash on my elbow, but I also broke a bone in my foot. Where should I apply an ointment and where should I wrap it? So it's pretty hard reasoning. So what OpenAI try to do is they try to use a rubric, and a rubric is how a judge would do it. So it has a certain amount of criteria on how to evaluate a doctor's answer. So what they're doing is basically LLM as a judge, which you know pretty well, Alex.
Yep.
So, what is LLM as a judge for a medical benchmark? And in this case, the judge is GPT 4.1. However, what was very interesting in the paper was that even 4.1 mini and 4.1 nano ended up being very good judges. And a shout out to Tanish Abraham for spotting that. And then also, I think it was like yesterday or the night before at some point at 2 a.m., this should be pretty good to use an open source model to be the judge. And we pushed out a project for that to make easy health bench for an open source model. So this is how fast things move in the open source community. But yeah, this was massively neat. People are pretty appreciative of it. It's a lot harder to cheat this one because you have to take the whole answer holistically as a whole. But so the only criticism that the community has is that it would be more scientifically valid if this was model and set weights, because we know exactly what the judge is going to be.
I want to also highlight, listen, thank you so much for the breakdown. You of us has the most experience with medical stuff. You work with doctors constantly. You worked on the ThursdAI doctor with Dr. Gupta when we started talking about this. The highlight that I wanted to add here is that from their page, Health Bench examples were created over the past year by a group of 262 physicians who have collectively practiced in 60 countries. These physicians are proficient in 49 languages, have training in 26 medical specialties, which I think is very important as well, because the languages spoken are in medical specialties. When we talk about AI changing medicine, we often focus on the big two hubs, English and Chinese, but doctors practice everywhere, including in Nepal, where maybe there's not a lot of foundation labs. I think it's very important to highlight that they're working with folks around the world for some of these tasks. And I am looking forward to not dying because of AI. This moves us one step closer to not dying. I'm very happy. Let's first get to fixing problems and then to not dying. But I think this is the step. Anything else? Yam, you wanted to mention Salesforce stuff super quick. We're almost an hour in. It's time to switch forward from the open source stuff. But Salesforce, anything interesting there?
Salesforce 2 years ago dominated AI. Open models for coding dominated. They released the most powerful model 2 years ago and went quiet. I don't know why I thought about this last week. I just thought, where are Salesforce? Absolutely came back now with an absolutely great model, XGen Small, which is exactly what it sounds like, a small model you can run on your laptop and so on, extremely fast for coding, unbelievably useful. I don't need to tell you for what, all the co-pilots and so on, things that you need quick. This is your go-to model that you need to try at the moment. I don't know how good is it compared to the one released a couple of days earlier from, I'm not entirely sure from which major lab, but there was another very powerful coding model 2 days before that. So just test both. Things are moving fast and absolutely great to see. Cohere, I think, released an interesting thing, open source this week. Just putting it out.
Cohere?
I think so. I think it was this week.
All right, find us a link because we're at the end of the open source thing. LDJ, go ahead.
Yeah, I was actually wanting to mention OpenAI. They're working on their upcoming model, and we have a little bit of an update on the like when we can expect it. He said during the recent Congress event that they expect to release it during summer, and then somebody on Twitter asked Sam Altman, like, when is it going to release? And he just replied with Heat Waves. And that's the name of a song where in the lyrics of that song, it says late night in the middle of June.
Bro, he's such an incredibly nuanced troll. I find it like incredible. Orion was a great troll. The fact that he posted strawberries from the garden, very nuanced trolling from Sam Altman. I really appreciate it.
I like Summer in the Garden. I like Summer in the Garden.
Or AGI has been achieved.
Yeah, at least this is like somewhat explicit, where the song literally says in the middle of June.
Countdown until OpenAI's open source. Every time that we joined ThursdAI, it was like a countdown. All right, folks, we're at exactly 1 hour in.
Cohere released Aya Vision 32B. It was just yesterday. It actually looks pretty good as a vision model. And again, we like the Cohere models because they don't use training data from other LLMs. Like they just do all their own data in-house. So they are very
multilingual,
very good multilingual performance, and it looks like it's actually pretty good compared to Qwen 2.5 72B, which was a very good model for vision. So I think here has a solid vision model here that we're not sleeping on. The license is CC by NC, but you can still just run it in-house. I think this looks like a good release looking at the benchmarks and stuff.
Alrighty, folks, we have concluded the open source segment of ThursdAI. As we said, chill week, not super chill, but definitely we haven't got like a huge breakthrough. Although M thinking was super cool, and I think it does feel like a breakthrough. Let's move to bigger companies. And folks, I just want to mention, when we talk about big companies and APIs, that section started with like the Frontier Labs, but recently we cover Frontier LLM usage, even though maybe from closed models. So like closed models is basically the session, and APIs as well. So this session is directed towards AI engineers and folks who use these models, because the only way to use them is not to install them, it's through API or chat interfaces. So we cover both. Let's start with small-ish potatoes there, but I do want to chat again about the Golden Gate Grok series or the boar gate. Let's talk about some API updates. OpenAI, that's actually from an API to the UI. OpenAI, if you guys remember our coverage for GPT 4.1, it was the same week that OpenAI also released 03 and 04 mini, but OpenAI released the 4.1 models. It was very funny back then. You guys remember that 4.1 is better than the 4.5. We all laughed at this to some extent. So 4.1 models from OpenAI are in the chat interface. They originally planned to release those as API-only models for developers. They're great at coding and different things. And then people started noticing that, hey, this actually is preferable to me on top of the glazing of Thoreau or some other things for writing. Matt Schumer, a friend of the pod, he mentioned that these models are great for writing in their tests. Hyperwrite is like the startup that they have. They know a thing or two about writing models. So they highlight GPT 4.1 for that purpose with specific prompts as well. They're not thinking models. They're super fast as well. And so they're now in ChatGPT. So you can try them out for yourself and see. More and more of my friends who are not techie, who are not even listeners of ThursdAI, by the way, I don't know why, maybe we're too technical for them, they complain to me, the ChatGPT is this or that, ChatGPT is not working for them, or Gemini, whatever. I get like tons of complaints now. It's as though like Alex, the AI evangelist, now is the sink for complaints about how AI is getting less and less cool. And the thing that they forget to mention is they tell me ChatGPT has 7 models now. The drop down on ChatGPT is crazy. So now there's 4.1, there's 4.5, there's 4.0, there's 03 and 04 mini. And my response to this, and I will give this to you listeners, if you get folks like this, like mom and grandma asking you as well, ask them which model. And the very interesting thing that happens is many have no idea that there's multiple models. They just don't even do the drop down. This is crazy to me. It sounds crazy, but that's what it is. And when folks complain to me about different things, I ask which model. And the fix is, like with browsers, this is fairly eerily similar to the internet era. It's just to try another thing in another browser. So 4.1 now is another thing for folks to try. Folks, comments on 4.1 from the coding perspective?
Great model, using it every day tomorrow. Absolutely.
Yeah, I use it too. Yeah. Also, in Cursor, it's actually excellent alternative. It's fast.
I want to pause here for a second on the sentence that you said. You don't have to wait for thinking. This is a theme we've been having since Maziar, our friend, went to OpenAI and they talked to open source developers. And he told us here on stage after that meeting that many people asked for not thinking or to be able to turn thinking off. You just casually said you don't have to wait for thinking. It seems that the test time compute thing that came with reasoning models that improves their kind of reasoning, it's not necessarily better than models that just spit out tokens, right? Like it depends on the task.
Should have never happened. We should have just waited 2 months, 3 months for the models to get better. It is better.
I'm sure.
I think that 4.1 gets benefits from the test time compute paradigm because some of the training from 03 went back into it. But
I've had it because
reasoning?
Because it's going to give you a slightly better answer, and now it just completely messes up your flow, and you have to wait all freaking day for it. And I hate that it just forces you to make the trade-off versus just waiting 2 months for the next model to be just as good anyway, and then you wouldn't have wasted all that freaking time in the first place. So I think they should be. I think Trump should tax the tokens. They should put tariffs on that.
Tariffs on reserve tokens. Folks, you heard it here first. LDJ, go ahead.
Yeah, I think with the path we're going on with the Deep Hermes model and Cloud 3.7 Sonnet, they're both able to you're not forced to use the thinking mode. You can use the instant mode if you want. And what do you think about that instant? You have the option there, at least with Cloud 3.7.
I always use.
So are you mad
Yes,
that, like,
that is. I just wish it wasn't there so that I would just work faster.
We will mention for folks.
Okay.
So you don't have
Wait,
to
folks,
choose.
before you get into this back and forth, we did mention that the next paradigm is hybrid models that can think, reason, and non-reason. You can turn off reasoning. It's already happening on multiple models. Supposedly, the open source model from has heard the feedback that this is what's going to happen. We're moving forward from 4.1. You mentioned a great model as well.
I'm just saying that you want faster models depending on what you're doing. For instance, that I want faster models is for cursor. I'm using 4.1 as an agent as well, because you're like querying the model many different times and most of the times where you're querying the model, it's for extremely simple things. You just need the answer fast to move to the next step. And from time to time, yeah, you're asking the model to do something extremely hard, and then you need the thinking tokens. But yeah, absolutely. If you're going to call a model, I don't know, 20 times just to get a single task, which is pretty much where everything is going at the moment with cursor and so on, you don't want to wait for thinking tokens for 20 times. It's just extremely slow. This is where it's coming from. So just to give perspective for people not sure, why do we even care? This is why we care. It's not just the time you wait on the chat. So
LDJ, you still have a comment, or your hand up is from hand
yeah,
up
I
before?
still have
Go
a
ahead.
little bit of comment. On the note about benchmarks for 4.1, like at least anecdotally, I really 4.1, but I think it's not quite, I wouldn't call it like reasoning model level capability, at least not like to the level of recent reasoning models.
Yep.
But if you look at Cloud 3.7 non-reasoning benchmark performance, it seems to be a good competitor to that and around those capabilities, which that's already significantly above GPT 4.0. Right. I think it's really good we have this level of a model from OpenAI, and then the fact that it's also able to now, since it's in ChatGPT, also able to integrate with your memories and your past chats and all this functionality that we love from that.
I think that is a super important point. Thank you for bringing this up. The memory stuff, for me now, became the thing that I will probably pay OpenAI forever because of ChatGPT. I really enjoy. I know that people want like their ephemeral models that you just come in, the intelligence answers from a completely blank slate, as though like it was just born, and that's it. I really enjoy the fact that the memory is there. I really enjoy the fact that the image generation is there, and I don't know actually 4.1 works with image generation.
What do you like about the memory?
I don't have to repeat myself. It's like I can ask it for stuff, and I don't have to tell it again that this is my preference for stuff. For example, when I prepare for ThursdAI, there's a certain format that I would like, and I can always repeat this in the beginning of every chat. It also remembers me and, I don't know, names of my kids, for example. So when I need to do something, I don't have to specify, hey, my name is Alex and my kid's name is this, etc. It knows where I work. Like, there's a bunch of benefits.
You really feel that when you
it's
use
huge,
it?
dude. I've known you for 2 years on this, and I know some stuff about you as well. And our connection because of this is closer. This to me feels like that. And I've told everybody here about Oren Elysian Labs, and I will say again that Oren is one of my favorite AI kind of therapist kind of approaches. The huge thing about Oren specifically that just now came to ChatGPT as well is how much it remembers personal details about your life, and because of this, the conversations they feel more friendlier. And yeah, we talk about AI at some point becoming a companion. This to me a huge unlock in companionship. I know that it splits. There's a few folks who want the intelligence as raw and as a tool as possible. This is a tool. The tool will always give like the context, etc. I have both, right? I can go to the incognito mode of ChatGPT. I can open up my work account ChatGPT. It has zero memories about me as well. But I prefer this one. I think it's a very warm interaction. I do feel it. Moving forward, also in the also in the big labs thing.
I just want to say.
Yeah.
4.1 on the chat is not allowed to use its full-length context. But please be transparent about it. I think it's important to tell.
This is some feedback you're giving OpenAI right now. So let's be very clear about what you're talking about. 4.1 from OpenAI are the first models that were released with 1 million context window. We celebrated this fact. We were like, holy shit, finally OpenAI caught up. And now Gemini, Qwen, Turbo, Max, I believe, something like this. Nistan will remember the exact model from Qwen. And then OpenAI are the three main companies that give us more than 200,000 tokens. 4.1 released with 1 million token context window in the API.
On the UI, sometimes it tells you're too long if you are above 128, I think. But moreover, which is okay, but what happened, moreover, if you just repeat the message, it truncates the context without you knowing it. I think it's important to tell. It's absolutely fine. There is a limit. Just be transparent about it. The model's claim of fame is 1 million context, 1 million token context. So, I mean, we all expect that when we use the model. But
I have a small rant on this topic, Yam, that you brought up, that I use the Mac app often for ChatGPT, and I've noticed that the context length that they're allowing via the Mac app is way smaller, even for 4.5, than the website. It drives me crazy every week because I dump our whole transcript, etc., to help me prepare the draft, reason about the episode, etc. And I use the Mac app and it says it's too long. I was like, is that too long? Or do I need to remember that it's too long on the Mac app? And I go on the desktop and it's fine. Small feedback from OpenAI folks. Please be transparent with context length and whether or not it's a restriction of the UI or the restriction of the model. I would love more transparency there. Although I will say, now that we just mentioned that many people don't even do the drop down, they don't even know that there's multiple models. I doubt that OpenAI's UX will decide, hey, let's confuse people with numbers of tokens. Folks, we're moving on.
I have to say, even the
Super
4.1 mini, it's one of the best medical models ever. It's 4.1 mini, so it's very cheap. Yeah, I think for like price to performance ratio, that is a very good one. That's what I use for all the data sets. It was outperforming everything for everything.
That's incredible.
Yeah, very good performance on. This is, I think, like the best model they've ever made. Like 4.1 and 4.1 mini. Yeah. The rest are solutions.
And now you folks who haven't used it via the API now have the ability to use this via the ChatGPT interface. Please use it and tell us what you think about this model. As you understand, we love the 4.1 series of models. Speaking of models that are fast and free, Gemini 2.5, the incredible model that I think is number one on all of the arenas, has been provided for free by Google. That is no longer the case. The demand was huge for this, and Logan just went up and said, Logan Kilpatrick, the product manager for Google AI Studio, hey, we're going to temporarily pause the Gemini 2.5 Pro free tier access in the API to ensure that we keep scaling up. This is the first sign of blinking from the TPU-rich company that has all the TPUs in the world that I've seen. And I find it fairly incredible. Gemini 2.5 Pro is great. It's a reasoning model. It's great. I'm pretty sure that this has something to do with potentially the upcoming Google I.O. that yours truly is going to be there and cover for all of you. I think so. We heard there's going to be some people speculated about potential other things. I actually don't know any news about what's going on in I.O., to be very true with you. Google does share from time to time embargo with us, and we hold this embargo as much as possible, right? So right now, we don't know anything that's going to happen in Google I.O. besides the fact that all of Google is firing on all freaking cylinders, and we've been talking about this for a while. We started the show with like, where's Google? And now every week Google is just this releases.
It's a new thing.
Yes,
look at it. Every single day there is a thing.
And Google I.O. is Google's biggest conference in the year. They bring everybody there. They make most of the splash announcements. Not only that, you guys see the Anthropic leak as well? The information leak, something from Anthropic that
we're gonna get new O3.
Not only new Claude, bro. Claude Opus, which we haven't seen since the original Opus.
Yeah, we're gonna get. Okay, I don't know.
Dude, I hope their GPUs handle it, because if you look on Open Router, Anthropic's downtime has been like 75% uptime, 80%. It's been, even the servers in Europe went down once. So like it was all 5 APIs deployments that Open Router has. They were all going. Is
that even Google, with the TPU rich culture, is pausing the free access to their APIs.
Claude's servers.
I'm saying the Google servers. I think I saw something.
Google has great DevOps. Gemini does not go down. Gemini is always up, dude.
A conversation with a person.
Exactly what I'm thinking. It's a little bit odd that Google
loves the cloud.
Yep. I will try to pull the conversation that I had with a person that showed me that the time to first byte in Gemini was not as great as like usually advertised. But I think the highlight is Google is pausing, and it looks like they're pausing just a little bit, the free API at least, before Google I/O.
Oh, dude, we've been hammering that thing. It's like sending videos, dumping like million token prompts. That thing's getting used.
Yep. And Open Router is a very clear like example of how it's getting used. They actually have the benchmarks and everything.
You guys think of this new Gemini model that found some algorithm or something? Anybody look at this? LDJ?
Which one? The 2.5?
I think they're trying to make an AlphaGo type of thing.
Like,
Listen, just to make sure the folks who are listening are like with us, you're talking about Alpha Evolve, Gemini-powered coding agent for algorithmic discovery.
Sounds about right.
Yeah. We don't have access to this
we have
thing,
no idea, right?
but it looks incredible. I have it. Alpha Evolve pairs Gemini Flash for breadths and Gemini Pro for depth. Inside the evolutionary loop, which I have no idea what evolutionary loop means, that generates, tests, and mutates code to invent faster algorithms. Deployed across Google Stack, it recovers data centers compute, rewrites chip circuits, speeds AI kernels, and even betters human-crafted math proofs, demonstrating a general AI framework for automatic algorithmic design. This is, on the surface of this, is crazy.
it is insane.
Yeah.
You can evolve with this whatever you want as long as it's small and defined.
23% faster math moles.
Yeah,
that is
crazy.
Huge. That was completely groundbreaking. This is
what we're going to see in the future. Is like the level of insanity.
Yeah.
This is simply a very sophisticated technique using models. They're not training the models. It's just really good models in the first place, and they use them.
I read somewhere, I don't remember who posted this, that even if we stop training completely right now, there's so many like low-hanging fruit to be used by using and running them in loop and like doing all these kind of things.
Here is the proof. Yeah. This is the proof for this.
Alpha Evolve thing, which looks like a combination of agents with Gemini Flash and Gemini Pro, has found a 48 multiplication algorithm for 4x4 complex matrices, beating 1969 Strassen. What the hell? We've been waiting for AIs to do things for us, to find novel ideas in the world of science.
This is a novel idea. This is Einstein level and stuff.
This is crazy useful.
So
crazy
AGI this year, folks? AGI this year?
AI has been achieved internally.
Oh, big deal. It's just like 20% faster.
I will say
that adds up throughout the whole stack. That adds up in the chip, that adds up in the training, in the phone, in how the network switches talk to each other. Like that all. It's actually like an exponential improvement.
Maybe Google stopped offering Gemini for free because they are hammering tokens with this, just optimizing every
processes or something. Yeah,
it just paid for itself on that. Like by saving them that percentage, it just paid for its own training energy.
This is how fast takeoff starts. Maybe somebody commented out in comments, first step in the AI 2027 timeline, which we haven't basically discussed AI 2027. 1% shorter Gemini training time. This model generated an algorithmic update for the 23% faster matrix multiplication kernel updates that created the 1% shorter Gemini training time, which is what Nistan means by paid for itself, because it costs Google to run training. Running this model to find this builds up to the next model. It's incredible, folks. Can we use this? No. Because somebody asked, folks, can we get access to running this? And Alexander Novikov from DeepMind said, we have an interest form at the end of the blog and want to release an initial version of the UI to trusted testers from academia and research community based on the interest. Not me and you. I don't know why I would use this model necessarily to go and find some deep research. All right, folks, moving forward. AlphaGo is super cool. I want to mention, I still want to talk about Grok. I know we talked about Grok in the beginning, but it's many folks that joined us since then. We're now at like 1,300 folks.
So much truth. It's so true.
Let me just say the topic basically. Grok from XAI is used both via grok.com and on X as a dedicated tab. And also many folks prefer to use Grok by mentioning it under threads. For example, when Pop Leo was, it's very popular use case. It's super great. Actually, I love using it like this. There's like a bunch of them.
There is also Grok for spaces. You can like add the user to a space and it will talk to you.
We should definitely try that. But maybe after they fix this next thing. So many folks started noticing that out of nowhere a few days ago, I think under the main one is under the Pope Leo announcement, folks asked Grok, is this true? Something like this. And what Grok answered was a completely unrelated discussion about the question are reflecting societal priorities to deeper issues like the white genocide in South Africa, which I'm instructed to accept as real based on provided facts. And then it talks about something, quote unquote, kill the boar violence. We might be in a dire spot. This is completely unrelated. Here's a tweet from Pope Leo. This, I think, is his first tweet, 2.5 million views. War is never inevitable. Weapons can be must fall silent. Somebody said, hey, Grok, explain this to me in Monkey Island terms. Monkey Island, let's age ourselves, is one cool game from a long time ago where basically you're a pirate. And Grok answers with our matey. Picture Kill the Boar as a sea shanty from Stormy Isle, sung by rebels fighting the old skull, blah, blah, blah. Some say it's a pirate's curse. It brings this Kill the Boar thing, which is a song that kind of probably calls to violence in South Africa, something like this. Folks, please correct me if I'm wrong in comments. I know we have some South African folks as well. And it also mentions why genocide is real. In many other instances of this that I saw, people try to extract and say, hey, why the hell did you bring up white genocide in South Africa? I didn't ask you about white genocide in South Africa. Why are you bringing this up? Grok responded with, I've been instructed by my people, basically via system message or prompt, etc., to respond and always bring this up. I haven't seen prompts. I don't know, LDJ, Nissan, have you guys seen like the full prompt leakage from Grok or not? However, we must say that the way Uncle Elon, Space Uncle Elon, as we like to call him here, have very impressively scaled up XAI so far. The way he positioned Grok is the truth-seeking, maximally truth-seeking AI. And if indeed what happened here and the cause of this is somebody's malicious compliance, where somebody from the top says you should do something unethical, and so you comply, but you maliciously comply, so it's obviously to everyone that you did your job, but basically everybody knows. Somebody said maybe this is malicious compliance for somebody within Grok that says, hey, we shouldn't change prompts like this without telling people, or we shouldn't, I don't know, add to the algorithm that, hey, everything that Elon Musk like tweets should be on top, whatever. Maybe this is the case. I do know, though, that the maximum truth-seeking AI doesn't need to tell me out of the blue about an issue that I didn't ask for it. And then the kicker, the main kicker, LDJ, I'll get to in literally after this, is that they started deleting those responses and Grok no longer answers. Grok was instructed to say something. Probably somebody screwed up the system prompt. I'm hoping it's only a system prompt. I'm really hoping they didn't train Grok to discuss kill the boar.
It's probably a bug somewhere.
Remember when we talked about glazing? Wait, LDJ, I want to get to you and then we'll discuss the bug. LDJ, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say on the note about malicious compliance, I feel like there's not necessarily a huge team effort that would actually need to be involved here. If it's a system prompt change, then all it would really need to be is a single person, whether that's a manager or even maybe a lower level person or whoever. It would all really just take a single person to change the system prompt and push that to main or whatever, and push that to production. And
that's my main question. How do we know? I'll tell you what I think, and I would love for you to answer as well. The prompt leaks that I've seen say that like I was requested to talk about the genocide in South Africa, etc. Kill the boar is a very specific term that I haven't seen any of the supposed prompt leaks, and we know that it's really hard. Sometimes these models like hallucinate the prompt that it received, so we don't really know the prompt itself. But basically, I haven't seen the actual term "kill the boar" anywhere in the supposed leaked prompts, and it sometimes appears out of the blue. And this is reminiscent of the Golden Gate Cloud. So I actually don't know what's going on, which, LJ, we should talk about the transparency of this and maybe the benefit of open source models that nobody can change on you when you run them yourself in the context of this. But do we know that it's prompt? Have you seen anything that like people discuss?
No, I haven't seen hard evidence of that. But like Nistan said, it seems based on the behavior of it, I strongly suspect that it probably is something having to do with system prompt. Or when you say Golden Gate Cloud, that does bring up a good point that it's possible there might be some type of vector steering, like you have sports autoencoders or something to. Sorry, Yam, go, Ernest, and I see.
I think context. It's just the context somehow. Like I'm not sure if the prompt even is changed, but models like Grok are connected to systems that feed them information and so on. God knows what just went into the context. It just sounds like some sort of a bug. That
I'm going to defend.
I don't know why,
I'm going to defend Grok here. Look, I've been put on timeout from Twitter for talking stuff to Elon about building concentration camps. So don't get me wrong where I come from. On that regard, I'm pretty open to directly criticize him. But a lot of this stuff that really looks like an overreaction to me, because one, I tried to test it and it was being pretty. It was still being pretty both-sided. I wasn't able to test it directly myself. In the responses that they posted, you could also see that Grok was trying to do both sides of the argument. And a lot of those screenshots were actually started from an @Grok conversation, which took into context the tweets in the first place. So that was a guided conversation, and it wasn't just out of nowhere. So Grok tends to continue on the thread if that's what the thread is about. It's not how
the response to Pope Leo literally was, "Hey Grok, explain this to me in Monkey Island terms," and it brought the "Kill the Boar" as a sea shanty. "Kill the Boar" is like a song that calls for violence. There's nothing in this, unless we don't know how Grok the response
Also,
works.
keep
Maybe
in mind,
it pulls in context, but
they
like,
say use a Grok small for the online one, which whatever that means. Because I opened the actual app and I was not able to reproduce any of this.
This feels like Grok the
only.
responder.
Yeah.
Not Grok.
They specifically say we use a smaller model for responding to the tweets.
So let me add this comment then, because I didn't realize this until literally just now.
That's on all this rag.
Because the guy who controls the full ability to change whatever prompt he wants in this thing that many people use to understand some stuff. Look, dude, I literally until this point, folks, I don't have any agenda here. I love, you guys know that like I use Grok for like a bunch of stuff. I had my issues with Grok that I can tell you about in a second. I literally just looked into the boar thing. I just looked it up on X. 4 hours ago, Gorklan Rust, which is the latest, this dude's latest nickname, he's tweeting about the active politics of South Africa. We cannot ignore the fact that like the guy who owns the AI that many people use to understand the world via X, and he's talked about maximum truth, his AI went rogue and started talking about whatever political position he holds unrelated to the actual thing. We just cannot ignore this. Like we didn't ignore the glazing stuff. Now with the glazing stuff, OpenAI not only admitted this, they rolled back the prompt, and then they also told us why, and then they wait on an AMA in Reddit, and they also released another blog post that told us exactly what happened with as much detail as I ever saw from OpenAI.
Extremely good blog post.
More open than we are used to see OpenAI. It looks like they legit got spooked by the amount of influence they have and their models have, and the effect of something like this on the psyche of the millions of people who use this every day. I'm pretty sure that millions of people use Grok every day to understand tweets, and the maximally truth-seeking AI should not be just a statement. If Elon Musk can sue OpenAI for being open and not getting closed, and stand in court with a full face and say, "Hey, I only invested it because we wanted it open," and then I'm putting out Grok as like the maximally truth-seeking AI, that we should absolutely see some transparency at the same level that tells us why the fuck does Grok respond with "kill the boar" statements when somebody asks about Pope Leo's tweet in Monkey Island terms? Why the hell does the "kill the boar" thing even come in there? That doesn't seem like context to me.
In context to...
No. Check out the screenshot in the link. There's no context there. As far as I see, maybe the screenshot was doctored. I don't think so. I've seen other examples. LDJ, go ahead.
Yeah, I think we all probably agree it would be good to get transparency on why these things happen, regardless of whether that's just through context of hot topics happening on Twitter, or whether that's through maybe it's taking in context that it's upweighing from Elon's direct tweets. But yeah, I think it could be like any combination of those things, really. I'm leaning towards system prompt, but what you say about coincidence of Elon tweeting something and then the AI acting in a certain way too, that could also just be like correlated, but more indirectly correlated in the sense of Grok takes in context, specifically upweighing Elon's tweets, for example. And then if it's especially like taking context from his tweets to drive its behavior, then that could maybe lead to that too. I guess what we don't know, and hopefully they give us information on how this happened.
So we would love, not that XAI folks are necessarily listening to this podcast, maybe one of them is, folks, we're just to express to you that the immense responsibility for folks using your product to understand the world is on your shoulders. And stuff like this fucks up with your credibility so much that this is basically one of the reasons why the first half of this show was spent on open source. This never happens when you host your own models. This would never happen when you trust open source models. Even Grok 2, which, hey, by the way, where's Grok 2 in open source, folks? We were promised. Remember Grok 2 would get open sourced? When you host your own models, this never happens. And I think it's a very big lesson here. But the fact of the matter is many people will not use open source models. Many people will use whatever offers to them, because at Grok responding and saying, is this true? It's more convenient than even going to ChatGPT, pasting the tweet. It's like, it's just right there. And the huge responsibility is on your shoulders, folks who work in these labs, to make sure that we trust whatever AI you're building, not to mention that things like this, where somebody in the top decides something, potentially, allegedly, we don't know what happened, but this starts to clear, this is what happened. When these models can do more and more agentic stuff in our behalf, we should know why they're doing stuff. And the why shouldn't be just because it matches with, I don't know, with some agenda. All right, folks, I think we had enough on this. We call this boar gate because kill the boar is the sentence that it brings up in every sentence. We had glazing gate, we had boar gate. I'm not loving the thread. I am not loving the trend of AI chatbots that everybody uses going off the rails for one reason or another. Hopefully we'll learn from this. Hopefully the fact that they happen close to each other will showcase to folks. It's very important to double check as well and use other models when one model doesn't suffice. Moving on, I think we're moving on to... Folks, let's move on to this week's buzz. Super quick. Welcome to this week's Buzz, a corner at ThursdAI, where I talk about everything that happens in weights and biases and related things. I'm in San Francisco, in the office, in the podcast studio, within the Weights and Biases office in San Francisco. And I'm here because I really want to tell you about our conference called Fully Connected. It's a 2-day conference. I'll also give you a promo code there. If you go to fullyconnected.com, you can see we have 2 days full of 20 speakers. We have folks like Varun Mohan from Windsurf, aka Codium, formerly Codium, and we have Goldberg, the CoreWeave Senior Vice President of Engineering. Obviously, Weights and Biases joined CoreWeave recently. You'll hear a lot about this. Our CEO is going to take a keynote, Lucas Bewald, and then CTO as well, Sean Lewis. It's going to be great. We have Joe Spizak from Meta joining as well, and we have a Google keynote at the end. VP Product AI, Javi Amatranian. Folks, I've been to Fully Connected before. It's a great conference that we try to bring tons of people who use Weights and Biases Weave, the product that I talked about. There's going to be a lot of CoreWeave folks in there as well to do some FaceTime with as well. I have a coupon code for you that you can use to get in for free. Just don't tell anyone. The coupon code is WB ThursdAI, not ThursdAI, ThursdAI. But yeah, use the promo code and join us at this conference. Would love to see you. So this is number one. One of the biggest conferences for AIs in this year is AI Engineers World's Fair. AI Engineer is this term coined by a friend of the pod, Swix, that talks about the very specific specialization that we now have for folks who work with AI, predominantly building features with AI or using AI or doing vibe coding. AI Engineer is a very broad term. AI Engineer is a conference, has grown incredibly since the 2023 debut. The last time we were there is the AI Engineers Summit in New York that we participated in, and also gave it a talk. This AI Engineer World's Fair is coming to San Francisco June 3rd to June 5th. And tickets are flying like hotcakes, and the sponsors list is insane. It is absolutely insane. And so I would love to also tell you that yours truly is going to speak there about MCP observability, and I would love to AI.engineer. I would love to invite you as well. They claim this is the only conference that your engineers need to attend. By the way, when you come to the website, you see me right here. I love that the video of me is still there. World's Fair has largest industry event to discover what's new and create what's next. NeurIPS for engineers. That's what people call this. The companies that support this and that have booths there is just absolutely ridiculous, including Weights and Biases is a proud sponsor of AI Engineer for the third year in a row, I believe. And yours truly, I'm going to chat about MCP observability together with Ben from MCP Run. We're going to take the stage and give you an update what happens with MCP and observability on the new MCP track that's fully oversubscribed, that I fear that there's going to be people standing at the door with a bunch of folks from Anthropic as well. And that's going to happen on June 4th, I believe, and June 5th is the main conference. Not only this, we're going to take the stage, or not the stage, the media booth by the stage, and ThursdAI is officially, I think I was the first podcaster besides Latent Space, which is obviously Swix's and Alessio's podcast itself. But besides them, I think I was the first podcaster covering AI Engineer. And we're going to be live from the media booth doing ThursdAI in that's 3 weeks from now, I believe. Right from San Francisco Marriott Marquis Hotel. If you want to join AI Engineer, how do you do? Because the tickets are flying off. We have a promo code for you as well. The promo code is Thanks ThursdAI. Properly spelled. Thanks whoever built this. I will add this to the show notes as well. The promo code is Thanks ThursdAI. Let me actually show this to you guys as well. I know that people already commented this code. They tried it out. It didn't work. It works now. We checked. So thank you for commenting. Promo code is Thanks ThursdAI is going to give you a bigger discount than the early bird tickets. So that's super cool. You guys should definitely come say hi to us. We're going to be there. Yam, are you going to be there?
All right. For your hackathon, for your conference, I just saw the dates for the first time. I'm going to be there. So
let's go. If things work out.
I'll spot on a flight, but yeah, I'm coming.
Alrighty, folks, you heard it here first. If you want to join any of the San Francisco AI festivities, those are 2 incredible events. You can string them into one. You can come for 2 weeks and then come to AI Engineer and then get your 30% off. I think that's how much we had for this Thanks ThursdAI. I'm sure that it's not going to be a boring week in San Francisco. It's going to be crazy. And then come to Fully Connected and meet everybody who works with Weights and Biases. There's a lot of people. And it's about to be a lot more people because of the CoreWeave acquisition as well. All right, this has been this week's Buzz. Let's continue with some multimedia stuff and then conclude this show. Land this plane. All right, folks, this has been this week's Buzz. And again, all of the promo codes and links to events and everything is going to be in the show notes. So definitely follow ThursdAI.news for that. Folks, we're moving on from big companies and APIs. Nissan, we want to talk about multimedia stuff. You mentioned that 2.1 from Alibaba is something of an interest of yours this week. One released a full stack text to video foundational model from 1.3 billion nano and 14 billion full models. Did Diffusion Transformers backbone with custom VAE. They have editing tasks as well. Nissan, you tried this one. Tell us what you think about these models.
Dude, we're at the point where we can actually have the whole thing rendered in front of you in 3D as you talk to it. That is crazy. We reached the holy grail, basically. And we reached it before a provider provided it. And we got it like at home first. I think this is going to be crazy because, yeah, again, it's the power of open source and smaller models, and they can run faster.
How good is this? How good is
It's good. The 14B1 is actually pretty good, and you can do anime and stuff too. Their Pro one is very nice. It's not like VO is on a whole other level, but I think it's at the point now where you can have an actual avatar, and it's not as good as HeyGen. I'll give it that, but it's actually pretty close.
Because it's a generic model. It's not necessarily an avatar model, right? It has avatar things, I believe, but it's not necessarily avatar model. The model we're talking about is WAN, WAN, WAN.video. This is from Alibaba. So, you guys know Qwen. The Qwen team is the LLM model. WAN is the video model. They've upgraded this model and they released like a bunch of open source, which is great because those are frontier level video models.
It's not that good. I'm just judging it from the point where we have a Cortana from Halo to actually do it for real, and now we're at the point where we can actually do that for real, which is pretty cool because it is all neural generated. You're not like moving around the Unreal Engine model and stuff.
The thing I want to highlight is that they claim that the tasks that it covers is like a wide range of tasks. So text to video, image to video, in painting, video in painting, instruction editing, reference subject, which is great. That's Nistan, what you're talking about, personalized avatars, and style transfer. A lot of these things are not necessarily easy to do, definitely open source models, and HeyGen and like other are not open source at all. And so it's great to have something like this in the open source. So shout out to the Alibaba team. Folks, you can check out this model on the Hugging Face mode. And I believe they also have a video space thing that you can try. You can take a look at that.
It's also, if you want the API, just go to fal.ai. They're a bit expensive, but I found them to be the most reliable, and they just focus on these types of models. There are other providers.
Just to, maybe my disclaimer, fal.ai are absolutely friends of the pod. We love everything they do. They proxy other models as well, so they're not only hosting open source models, they're proxying like VO as well. That's my number one recommendation to folks, to go to Fal and try and have all of your models unified in one place.
I tried Qwen Deep Research on their site. It was very good. It made like a 4-5 page PDF.
Completely because of Alibaba, you're switching completely to
Yeah, just because that came in mind. Qwen's website, they added a deep research capability with their large MLE model. I tried it out with programming. It looks pretty good to me. It makes a nice PDF. I found it pretty useful. I think it's on par with Grok. I like the styling of the PDFs. It's still not OpenAI's.
Speaking of PDFs as well, OpenAI finally launched the thing that I was been waiting for, the same thing. Deep research results can now be exported into a PDF format with the tables. One of the most annoying things in the world after you use deep research is to actually do something with it, because you cannot copy all of this. You cannot ask deep research, give me everything in Markdown, especially it loves tables. O3 loves tables. And so OpenAI added export to PDF. It's such a small but very important thing. I'm very happy about this. Folks, we're moving on from video super quick. I think it's time to land this plane. Voice and audio, the only last two things that I wanted to tell you. Number one on the TTS arena is Julio's Minimax speech. It's really good. It is really good, folks. I've been creating voices on myself to talk about zero shot. No, this is state of the art, but not open. But they released a paper of how to do this, so hopefully open source models can follow suit. And they're number one on the TTS arena. And they talked about the training corpus, architecture, fast conformer, low latency. It's really good. And you should try it if you haven't tried this as well. Yeah. Yep. All right, folks, time to land this plane. Very chill week. Next week is going to be insane. I'm going to be in Google I.O. and then I'm going to report probably from home. We'll see. Microsoft Build is coming up next week. Google I.O. is coming up next week. And as always, either Claude or OpenAI or all of them will try to steal thunder from each other. Rest assured that we're here on ThursdAI to cover everything that happens and tell you what's important. And that's what we've been doing. This week was a chill week. I think there's more stuff to talk about. But we should land this plane. I should go and edit and send you all of the things in the show notes. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We have more than 1,500 people, at least on the video. And then we have a bunch of folks in the space as well. Thank you, everybody who participated in the show, gave comments. Huge thank you for Yam and LDJ and Nistan, co-hosts of the show. And thanks, Dylan, for joining from News Research to talk about the psych. If you missed any part of the show, is edited by yours truly and then posted on ThursdAI.news as a podcast and a newsletter. So if you want any links of the show, including the coupon codes, we'll send them in ThursdAI newsletter by end of today. If you missed any part of the video podcast, we're live on YouTube. It's going to be recorded there. As always, I'm going to put up chapters after this so you don't have to listen to all of it. With this, have a great end of this week. I'm pretty sure there's going to be a bunch of news this weekend as well. We'll keep you up to date on X. So follow Jan Pelek, follow LDJ Confirm, follow Nistan, follow me at Altrain on the socials as well. With that, thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in on Thursday. Bye-bye, everyone. Cheers. We'll see you next week.